We are live on Substack and on YouTube and in a bunch of other places across your social media networks. On Narrative Live with our two very good friends, Ann P. Mitchell, attorney and advocate from the Notes from the Front website or Substack. And it says on her mug, what does her mug say today? I put the cute in prosecute. Oh, very, very cute.
I love it.
And Lev Parnas from Lev Remembers and Lev for Congress is here as well. We had such a good time last week doing this with you guys, so we thought let's do it again. And we're doing it at a very auspicious time, by the way. Right now in Europe, this is what the eclipse looks like in real time.
Literally, it's amazing. Wow, look at that.
It's just beginning to cross over now. You can see the sort of the bite of the. So what are we looking at here? Does anyone know knows how this works? I used to know this, but we're looking at the sun being eclipsed by the moon, right?
Yes.
The moon being eclipsed by the sun. Yeah. Okay.
No, the sun being eclipsed.
Any other explanations? Probably not. This is not our specialty. But
it's definitely not my specialty.
But let me tell you what I can. So, it's had a big significance, these eclipses, way back when in the dawn of ages kind of time, that every time there was an eclipse of the moon, it meant that there was a change of the king.
Wow.
And so it was a highly superstitious period of time. And sometimes they even replaced the king temporarily because they were having an eclipse and they didn't want the real king to get replaced. So they created a temporary second king, and then they returned the original king later. Now, we haven't had that happen with our new king, but maybe he'll be replaced. Maybe this is an omen of something to come. I don't know. I don't know.
Maybe a new king is coming. Exactly.
Yeah.
Actually, Winterfresh, one of our subscribers, is saying we should see a fullest at 1:53 in DC. So I guess like in a couple of minutes from now, we're going to see the eclipse in DC, and everybody's sending their love to us. So I just want to say a shout out to everybody out there, all of you subscribers sending it. I could see you guys here, Zev, for Ann. Just on behalf of all of us, we love you, and come on in, join us. We got an incredible show lined up for you.
And also just, so we won't actually be able to see the eclipse. They'll be able to see it in Europe and further north of Europe. But we do have the Perseids shower going on here in the U.S.
We do. What does that mean?
Yeah,
it's a fabulous meteor shower. So you can go somewhere after dark, and supposedly, at least here in Colorado, I was told that it's a new moon, which I think is the case everywhere, which means that it will be even easier to see them because you won't be like fighting with the moon. So go somewhere dark and look up.
How amazing is this stuff? To me, science and the astrology and the moon, just being able to go, some of the things that we start, things that are.
You're cutting out a little bit there, Lev. I don't know if there's something. Maybe the moon's interfering with your radio frequencies or something. Try again.
Is that better?
That better?
Yeah, it is better.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, sorry about that.
And that's okay, but I'm glad that you like science.
I was never good at science, but I definitely find it fascinating. It's something because even now, think about it, we're talking about the UFO files being, Trump's declassifying a lot of stuff. You have Obama making comments about, Area 51 and UFO. Like, to me, growing up, back when during our time growing up, it was like something far-fetched, like little green man. If you would talk about actually UFOs, you'd be committed. Like you literally, people would look at, and here we are literally having conversations, and I feel either I feel crazy, either I feel outdated, or I'm trying to fit in and figure out, do we have like UFO? Is this?
No, there's no UFOs. There's no UFOs. Right? I don't buy the UFO stuff.
Thank you. Please tell me, please, because
it seems like it's every time they drop this information, it's like nothing significant in them. So if they've been studying all of this for as much as they have, and they come up with nothing, I assume there's no UFOs. I'm sure there's flying objects that are human made, but they're probably not Martian made or anything like that, as far as we know. Would be my guess.
I'm hoping, because some of the people I talk to, they're like, Lev, and I'm like, okay, let's stop this conversation because we're not gonna go forward. By the way, from all of us, happy birthday, Sylvia. Sylvia's birthday today from Zev.
Happy birthday to you.
Oh, look at that.
You don't hear me sing.
Right.
Wow, you know what's interesting about this moon thing or any eclipse is it's a uniting thing for humanity when we all look at this one event and we are all kind of in awe of this one event because it's a show being made by God or nature or whomever in front of us, and it sort of gives us a good perspective about where our problems really exist. In the grand scheme of things, our problems might look really big, but to us, but in the grand scheme, they're not that big. I mean, we're just a little speck of dust with some people disagreeing
Dust
about
in
some.
the wind. Yep.
Yeah.
By the way, it's the Assyrians that did the king transfer. When they were worried about their king getting kicked out because of the eclipse. So, in case you're wondering for the reference there. All right, let's get into some news. I'm going to keep this picture up somehow because it's kind of fascinating.
Yeah.
The big news that we're having today is that, having admitted that there was no case in the reflecting pool, that thing was not really a case, the U.S. Attorney for D.C., Jeanine Pirro, is now going back and convening a grand jury in the same case where, they're alleging that these poor people just happened to be at the reflecting pool and maybe wanted to see if they could pick up some litter or whatever it was that was floating at the top of the reflecting pool. These people might again face prosecution because the president of the United States has decided that that's a thing that should happen. And so he's threatened, we understand, Jeanine Pirro's job, and she's done what she needed to do. She's now convened a grand jury, or at least intending to.
I want to say, so I've spoken with David Hearn. He is the Olympian who is the, Olympic. I didn't even know we had canoeing in the Olympics, but he is the Olympic canoeist who, was incorrectly charged in this. And so I don't know if, Lev, do you know who the targets now are?
Well, David Hearn is still one of the targets.
Okay.
Definitely, I spoke to sources on the inside that he's definitely, and I think Norm Eisen came out on CNN earlier, also right before we went on, discussed that they are anticipating to see, because it's interesting because they have right now in front of a judge a filing to be able to, instead of dismiss it without prejudice, but to dismiss it with prejudice, meaning that there cannot be any more filing charges at the same time while there's a grand jury being convened. There are other people that I hear he's not the only one that they're trying to target through supposed cameras and videos that they had of, like you said, Zev, people just literally coming in and being curious. I mean, this is a public monument. This belongs to all of us, and if you walk by and you saw something floating in it, there's no sign saying you can't touch the water, even
you're allowed to touch the reflecting pool.
That's what I'm saying to you. So it's definitely what I'm hearing. It's a major push towards Pirro. She basically put her hands up and is convened the grand jury. But I'm also hearing
a special grand jury. We should point out this out. Sorry to interrupt you. It's a special grand jury. So it's a grand jury that can investigate. It doesn't really indict, as far as I understand.
Right.
So it's going to take a long time. It's going to investigate. And I'm sure she's thinking, if it takes 18 months or longer, the president may forget about her or might be out of office by then.
Well, and also they would have to come up with new facts because it was dismissed. And Lev, did you say, I hadn't heard whether it was with or without prejudice, but either way, in order to re-indict the same people from the first case, they would need to come up with new facts, something after discovered, to go forward again.
Correct. Yeah, and it was dismissed with prejudice or without prejudice. I'm already confused. It was dismissed basically that they could bring it back. So without prejudice.
Without prejudice.
And Norm Eisen and the team filed with the judge to have it looked at and dismissed with prejudice too. So they could not bring it back. And that's actually in the judges right now as one of the filings while this jury is convened. And I think that's a great point you made, Zev. That this is something that's not going to take overnight, and it's not a jury that's going to bring out indictments. But right now they're going into, and maybe Anne could talk more about the investigative part, because it basically kills two birds with one stone, because it saves face for Pirro, where she's now basically going after not only him but others now and making into a grander scheme, giving Donald Trump what he wants, and it puts the toddler at bay, saying, "Here's your lollipop. pop for now. Like you said, we're Donald Trump here, and we're gonna figure out. But I'm also hearing that there's a lot of also inside of the DOJ because of this, because of Piero being, there's major, pushback back and forth going on there. So this is not, no matter how you look at it, this is I mean, we could laugh at it because at the end of the day, this is so, I mean, it's just
It's
so
absurd.
it's stupid. I mean, there's no other words to say it. I mean, it's just plain stupid we're talking about. But the fact that they're pushing on such a level and the fact that they're doing it is really becoming a major riff inside. And, just like everything else that Donald Trump touches, turns to shit, not gold, excuse me.
This is what he wants, right? He wants a future which is like, it's his view of the world and only his view of the world that survives. He doesn't want any challenges to his perception. So if he is creating a story that the reflecting pool is vandalized, he wants that to be the accepted truth for all Americans. That's the way he wants to rule. So even though it's a very sort of funny matter, as is his escape yesterday on in the catering cart, it's hilarious. But on the other hand, he's living in a delusional universe, and he wants us all to suspend our disbelief and just move in with him and accept. Okay, Donald Trump, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. There was a vandals that wrecked that pool. It wasn't your really shoddy pool guy who has no idea what he's doing and couldn't get a pool fix because he doesn't even know how to do the stuff that you were asking him to do. It's not him. It's the vandals. It's the American people that are doing it. Now he's going to spend another $1 billion on the White House. He just announced today through the Washington Post. $1 billion. Like, the American people are not asking for $1 billion to be spent on the White House. They're asking for $1 billion to be spent in a lot of other places. But he's just, it's his reality. He wants a palace there. He'll build a palace. It's just the worst of the worst kind of autocracy.
And I just go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. No,
you go first.
I was just going to say, and there's extra impetus here because not only does he want it his way, but the court basically proved him wrong, and he hates that. He cannot be wrong about anything, and so that's that really has his dander up, so to speak. So that's really worse. And I just want to point out, and Lev, I don't know if you're going to talk more. I'm sorry, Zev. Why do I do that?
We're one. You can just combine us now.
Zev. I hope you're going to talk more about the catering truck caper because it potentially had put journalists at risk.
And his own cabinet.
Well, let's talk about it.
Before we talk about that, Todd Blanche there, you mentioned, about just now you were talking about Todd Blanche is, the courts going after Trump, and they basically denied him with the childbirth. We know the Supreme Court. So, yesterday, I think he signed an executive order or the day before about a new way of childbirth. And Todd Blanche, right before we went on, literally came out already announcing investigations into a Chinese, and obviously it's going to be Chinese, probably Ukrainian, and all these countries, whatever that they're trying to get out, but that there's already a childbirthing ring happening, and they're looking into a big investigation, and they're trying to go around it. So as the courts are striking him down, just like Zev said, and again, this is not Donald Trump. I just want to make a very good major point to this to everybody out there that's listening. This is Stephen Miller. This is Russell Vought. This is the Federalist Society. These are people and others that I don't know the names of the people that are actually sipping through these loopholes to be able to continuously put pressure on the Supreme Court by giving it back into it in a different form, in a different way, until they're trying, just like they abolished women's rights by taking away, their right to be able to have, care for their own body and abortions. I'm sorry, but now we could.
No, I think you're right. And I think the new council that they've just appointed is going to do just that. He's stated that he's going to create as many executive orders and attempts to change the law through executive order as possible. So if he loses the case, no problem, rewrite the law so it fits Donald Trump's universe.
I really want to point out, and I wrote about this, so I'm sorry for the people who read about this earlier, but I think it's very important to understand that neither Donald Trump nor Stephen Miller are lawyers. They have never been to law school. They don't care. They just basically, Miller comes up with what he thinks is a good idea, and Trump rubber stamps it, and they don't know or care whether it's legal. And then it's the DOJ's problem when it turns out that they get lawsuits
Correct.
about whatever it is. The DOJ has to then defend it, even if the DOJ lawyers know that, hey, this is illegal. It's our job to defend it. But Trump and Miller, they have no freaking idea whether something is legal or illegal. They just want to do their good ideas.
And that's the definition of dictatorship, because a president, you would say, I want this done, and they would come to you and say, legally, Mr. President, this is how you can or cannot do it. And he would try to she would try to figure out in legal ways of trying to get it done, agree or disagree with that policy. Dictators turn around and say, I want this done. They turn around, and your AG comes to you and says, Mr. President, there's no way of getting it done. And he turns around and says, well, you figure it out and you get it done because I want it done. That's where we're living in right now, and you're 100% right.
Well, that's the system we had. It was one where, the American presidency is not a very powerful position on its own. Its position becomes more powerful when it's able to reach consensus and agreement with the other branches of government. And what they're trying to do with this Trump administration and this unitary executive is basically replace what was a very collaborative system, or try to be a more collaborative system, and replace it with one big, powerful branch of government, rather than having all these annoying for them checks and balances that happen in the House or the Senate or during elections. So they're going to do their darndest to take all that collaborative part away and replace it with just Donald Trump's whims, which is why you get him insisting the reflecting pool is correct. And let's talk about the catering truck. It's so funny, the image of him escaping this alleged assassin, which I know there's some reporting today saying there's someone spotted with a missile in Ankara, and maybe this is a credible threat. I'm not saying it's not a credible threat, but they haven't really given us evidence to say, look, we showed this guy's going to be killed. I haven't seen it. I mean, maybe someone has.
But before we just get into it, I just want to say, somebody that knows Donald Trump's been around him, knows that whole world. I just sat there when that news broke. When they broke that news, I looked at my wife, and I just looked at it and said, I was like, who's the brainiac that came up with that idea? I was trying to figure out.
And everyone's guessing it's Bibi, by the way. The answer to that question is maybe Bibi Netanyahu.
No, to slip it.
That's maybe who put him up to this. Because
all I'm saying is, but for the actual plan to go into effect, to have him go into that, and I mean, but think about it. I mean, yes, as crazy as it's funny it is, and we're going to get into, because let's laugh a little bit about this. We deserve. I mean, you can't make this up. We're never probably going to ever have this in the history, at least as long as we're alive, seeing anything like this happen. But it was really dangerous. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry to interject, but I'm seeing a lot of misinformation in the chat, so I just want to tell people again. He cannot stop the midterms. He cannot declare a national emergency. He can't put us into martial law for skirmishes that happen within our borders. I really need you guys to stop saying that, because
he's going to try. I think what they're referring to is this comment that was made on some right wing thing the other day, and I'll play it for everyone. But he's going to try, I think.
Sure, he can try, but he can't do it. And when anyone spreads that fear, you are doing the work for the right. So just please stop it. Yeah, he's going to try to do whatever the heck he's going to try to do, but he can't do it, because right in the Constitution, the states run elections, not the federal government, not the president. So please.
We're going to get back to that later on, because we're going to play the clip. We're going to talk.
And I'd like to ask you some questions about that, because that's very important. Because I'm also done. From what I'm hearing, he's definitely going to try, and I'd like to hear your legal opinion of where we can. And let's definitely talk about this a little, because I'm just like the chat, and right now worried that he is. So I need you to help me also clarify that. So great, go ahead, Zev.
I mean, we can talk about that now, or we can keep talking about the catering truck for a little bit here, and then come back to that.
Truck, for sure.
Yeah, let's go.
So anyone would jump in. Go ahead.
No, you go. I was a catering truck. I'm in.
Oh no, so I just can't believe that they have, the people that he chose to save and the people that he chose to sort of put into harm's way. He's so, symbolic, emblematic of who this guy is. So he brings his assistant with him, the human printer or something, whatever they call her. And he brings, these other guys like Dan Scavino, the social media guy, and Nort, the other guy that he hangs around with a lot. And then he leaves the press corps in harm's way by actually letting them on the plane without explaining to them that plane is under threat. And then he sends Marco Rubio and Pete Hegseth on there as well, out of Ankara. This is the worst kind of leadership you can imagine. I mean, the whole thing is that the captain goes down with the ship, right? I mean, that's what it looks like when you have good leadership. Instead, this guy is like, get me the hell out of here and let's screw them, screw those guys back there.
I'm going to say something to you guys this is because I'm working on this, but this might be more. This might be totally different from what everybody is. So let me take you guys back a little bit. I don't believe that Donald Trump did this because he was scared of what was going on. I don't think that because I don't think our intelligence services, would have put reporters, Marco Rubio, in harm's way. I think something else happened. And that's what I'm looking into. And I think CNN, broke the story, but I think they leaked that story, especially to CNN, because part of what we did in MAGA was leak certain stories to take you off the version. So you're going to hear it here first, folks. Before, I'm not breaking this story yet, but we're going to break the stories. Donald Trump had a separate meeting that we don't know with who and what was going on. And that was taking place at the time, having to do with the Iran situation, the Middle East, and what's it called now. I don't know who it is or what it is, if it's the Russians or BB or Shmee or whatever it is. But the fact that this was not, and that's why Donald Trump came out and accepted saying that there was a threat. Because if there was a real threat, Donald Trump would never accept it. He would tell you this is national security. Right now, he would be going after people that leaked the story. So the reason why he's allowing the story, this is a lot bigger, and I'm telling you right now, but we're going to break it later on. So stay tuned, folks.
So we're not sure this is of the what he was attending, but that there might be another reason why he ditched his press corps and his key advisors.
Exactly, but it wasn't because of it was definitely the press corps. He needed to ditch the press corps. The advisors were the distraction. That's why he allowed Rubio and Hegseth on the plane to allow that. This way, the press corps thought that everything is normal and going forward. But he needed to, because the one thing and this is why everybody's talking about, why is the press corps travel with the president? To be able, if he doesn't feel good, if something goes, if he has a meeting, an emergency phone call, to be able to report on it. Now, all of a sudden, Donald Trump slips through the cracks. The press corps is flying one place. He's flying on a different plane. Now you don't know who else was on that plane. We're assuming it was only Dan Scavino. We don't know where the plane stopped. We don't know who was already. We don't know who else was on that plane.
I believe more.
And that's what I'm hearing from a lot of different people. I'm not confirming it yet, but this is where I'm going to say we're going to be heading in the next few days, maybe weeks to come.
That is fascinating. I know you're dying to jump in here, and let me just say one thing, because the media has so much responsibility here to cover the president. And the president has a responsibility to be covered by the press corps. That's why it exists. And for him to lie, this is a maneuver to escape coverage, is lying to the American people. It's destroying the very idea of transparency in government. It is a very serious offense. I don't know where he went. Or maybe he did, whatever it was he was doing. If he did do that behind the backs of the press corps, it is a huge no-no. I mean, we've had this degradation of what we know about the presidency happen since they moved in last year. But, you haven't had records of who's visiting the White House, all these things that we used to have. But if he really just ditched them in order to, and, I can think of maybe 2 examples in the past. I think Clinton did this once, and it's a really big deal when you do this. It's not one of those things you can just Dude, there's always at least a camera crew or two or three. They call them the pool that travels with the president no matter what he's doing. And in this case, they had obviously a huge team. But it would be interesting to track where they went. And indeed, if they had a meeting, that'd be fascinating to find out.
Well, and let's not forget that he immediately went after the New York, I think it was the New York Times, was it, journalists, and subpoenaed them immediately.
Mhm.
You know, and that doesn't seem like something that would be done if it was truly just, hey, we're getting him out of the way of a threat.
And the biggest telltale to me was because I know the guy, and I look at different things, and is that he came out and basically went with the story, telling you, oh, they had to get me, and that and you could tell he's mumbling because all of a sudden one day he's telling him, you're going down with me, I go down with the ship with you, and I'm on a different.
Mhm.
So what I'm saying to you is, you could tell that by him embracing it and not trying to kill the story, because Donald Trump then wants this story, because just I know him. When he doesn't want a story to be out there, he tries to kill it, change the narrative, and go on to something else. By allowing the media to continue running with the story, not having all of a sudden anger tantrums and people looking in phones, investigations, who leaked the story. I mean, think about it. Pretty embarrassing story. I mean, Donald
Never
Trump
level.
going into that, and he's not looking at who leaked that story. So what I'm saying to you, there's a bigger story. I always say, watch what they do, not what they say. They might be saying certain things, but there's a lot more happening behind the facts. And the biggest telltale here is that, forget about Donald Trump. See, the media, tries to exploit and say Donald Trump put the media in harm's way, use them as what's it called, a ploy,
Decoys. Or
decoy.
yeah.
Donald Trump doesn't have the authority to do that. That would be the Secret Service or national
Mhm.
security advisors. Donald Trump was listening to what he was being told. So the fact that our media was on that plane, Pete Hegseth was on that plane, Marco Rubio was on that plane. Trust me, I tell you, there was no threat to that plane whatsoever. And
But
that
that
is
begs the
why.
question: why is the Secret Service lying to everybody? Why is which I haven't put out an official statement yet, but the reporting is that they're confirming that there were missiles and all sorts of things. If
Well,
that's
because that's because there were missiles. I mean, he's in the Middle East. It's Turkey. There's a war going on with
right,
Iran. I'm sure there's automatic. Just like if you speak to any president, like I saw there was an interview with somebody that flew with Obama, or I think it was into Iraq or Afghanistan. They flew in the middle of the night. There was always threats even during those times. So when you're flying around the president, but what I'm saying to you, the fact that they allowed a plane full of journalists. They wouldn't allow a plane full of American citizens, let
yeah,
alone
of course not.
journalists,
Yeah,
Marco Rubio. So what I'm saying to you is, the fact that they allowed that plane to take off, I call it bullshit. I call it, there was no threat. I call this is a setup. I call it a wag the dog situation. There's more to it. We're going to break the story. I'm already hearing rumblings. So stay tuned.
can't wait
This
for
is
that.
bigger
That's
than this.
great.
Yeah.
Everyone follow
Yeah.
Lev. Remembers, Lev knows his stuff. He's got better sources than anybody else, and if he's telling you this, it's the truth. So we'll all be following this afternoon as you do this. We have a few more minutes left here. By the way, if you're wondering what you're seeing on the screen here, this is the eclipse that's happening right now in real time.
I'm watching this.
Above-
Incredible. Yeah.
Yeah, it is actually incredible, and must be really amazing because you're now seeing total darkness, right? If you're watching from, I think it's Scandinavia and other countries, it's probably the best view. You'll be entering a cone of darkness. And anyone who's seen one of these eclipses will know that that's a very special feeling, and weird feeling.
Yeah.
Because you
Weird.
feel unsettled by the,
It's otherworldly.
yeah. So two other stories for us to get to. Let's start with the election story we were just talking about. And this also ties into this new USPS ruling that you highlighted yesterday, Anne. This is a significant ruling which builds on your point that, the courts are not going to allow Donald Trump to do anything to the elections this year, because in this case, they really pushed back.
Yeah, absolutely. So for those of you who have been following that saga, they know that, a couple of different lawsuits were aimed at, stopping so the USPS basically said it was going to put into place a rule that would say that in order for a state, for them to carry the ballots and deliver the mail-in ballots for a state, the state first had to upload through a USPS portal their voter rolls for everyone who was going to vote by mail. And so, of course, there were several lawsuits, two at least, that went forward challenging this. And then the appeals court basically said, so the lower court put into place an injunction saying you can't do that. The executive order that is telling the post office to do this is not legal, and, et cetera. And then, of course, the administration appealed that. And then the Court of Appeals said a few weeks ago, well, this is not a ripe issue, so that injunction can't stand. And what ripe means is that the issue is happening. It's not speculative. In this case, up until this week, it was the case that there was a proposed rule. It may or may not have happened, right? So the case wasn't ripe. You can't bring a speculative, a case that's based on speculation. And but then God, I really love this. So the rulemaking ended. The public comment. So if people know, I have had way too much coffee. I didn't think that was possible. So people may know that when a federal agency proposes a new rule, there is a rulemaking protocol you have to follow, and you have to publish it in the Federal Register and allow the public to comment on it. And then the comments close, and then the rule is either, solidified and formalized and made into an actual rule or not. So the public commentary for this proposed rule by the USPS to screw with mail-in balloting, and yes, that's a legal term, ended at the end of July. And not only that, but the executive order that Trump issued said the rule had to be put into place by July 29th. Well, July 29th has passed, and neither of those things happened. The rule hadn't been pushed out, and it definitely hadn't been finalized. And so my suspicion is that that was intentional, because they didn't actually ever want this issue to become ripe. So Judge Talwani, who is the judge who issued this decision earlier this week, basically ruled that the issue was ripe. That even though they had never formalized the rule, even though Trump's order said it had to be formalized by the 29th, basically the time, she actually underlined it. She said the time to deal with this is underlined now. And she said, basically, this cannot move forward. And if you'll indulge me, I'm just going to basically quickly read this. Much litigation has ensued in response to this unprecedented directive. Throughout the multiple actions before district courts, courts of appeal, and the Supreme Court of the United States, the federal government has declined to defend the constitutionality of the directive. Instead, the federal government has asked this court and other courts to postpone judicial review on standing and ripeness grounds. And she is not having any of it. And so she says, oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay. Take your time to find it.
Okay. The court finds that where the executive order is presently causing confusion and threatening both increasing chaos and an erosion of trust in our democracy, the court finds that enfranchisement heavily outweighs the executive's attempt to unconstitutionally insert itself into the domain of election regulation. So in this context, enfranchisement means your ability to vote. That it is now less than 90 days before the November 3rd, 2026 midterm elections underscores the critical need for an injunction to prevent defendants from changing election rules on the eve of the election. Therefore, for the foregoing reasons, the court grants this preliminary injunction, and all of the defendants are preliminarily enjoined from implementing, giving effect to, or enforcing the executive order and that rule with respect to the November 3rd, 2026 elections or any earlier federal election including refusing to transmit mail-in or absentee ballots or otherwise initiating or completing rulemaking to promulgate the specific regulations outlined in the order. And then she throws them a bone and says, this injunction does not bar the federal government from providing non-binding USPS guidance on ballot mail envelopes.
So this is the
Wow.
postal law,
Yes.
the one that the
Yeah.
judge shut him down.
Right.
That
So
is
this
fantastic.
It
I didn't know
really
that.
is.
I'm going to give you an applause for that. You did a good job.
Thank you. Yeah, so to be very, very clear, this is the court saying, post office, you
Yeah.
cannot require the states to upload through your portal, the voter rolls, and you must transit the mail-in ballots. But that said, as I always say, guys, don't trust your ballots to the post office. Put them in a drop box.
But isn't that enjoyment when they're restricting all this promulgation before election night? That's a pretty big deal. Like that was broader than
is.
just the USPS. That was everything, right? Wasn't it about every election law?
No, it
No.
was specifically about the executive order directing the post office to create this portal and to not deliver mail-in ballots if the states didn't bend a knee in compliance.
So, and I'm going to put on my MAGA hat for a second and ask you some questions and pretend to be devil's advocate and say to you, like, plenty of courts have shot down things we wanted to do, but we don't listen to any court so far except for the Supreme Court. And even that court, we're now playing games with the way we're going to take one of their challenges. So it is a win, and I understand for the Democrats, but what's to stop the leadership of the postal office? I don't know who runs it. I forgot the guy's name, but that vowed basically in front of Congress saying that he'll do whatever Trump says that will do. And what's to stop Trump from still pushing it and appealing it now to the Supreme Court, which will now obviously prolong it, delay it, and put it in a shambles and let this happen?
Well, first of all, I would like to, with all respect, because I love you dearly and respect you, say this is not a win for the Democrats. This is a win for democracy, for our rule of law, and for the Constitution.
Absolutely.
And there is zero doubt in my mind that they will that they will appeal it at least to the Court of Appeals, and that it will get the longer it takes, the closer to the election it is. That just only means that they have even less of a chance of having it go their way, because it is so close to the elections now, to the midterms. And so I am very confident that the Court of Appeals, if they appeal this, will absolutely agree with the lower court, especially because they sat on it in order to try to keep the issue from becoming ripe. And no court likes that, not even our Supreme Court, not even any court. They don't, witness what happened with Trump versus IRS. When you try to game the court gets really pissed off. They don't like that. But also, they would be really, really stupid to appeal this up to the Supremes, because there is no chance that they're going to be allowed to do this. And they don't really want the Supreme Court also saying, no, you can't do it, because, that's the ultimate.
But what stops them? And again, I'm not, and I'm because I'm really honestly trying to
No,
find
I
out,
understand.
and I'm not trying to beat on you on here, please. I really what's to
No, I
stop them?
understand.
Because like what we watch, because what I'm hearing is that they are definitely planning on doing something. Now, what that is, we're still trying to figure out. But you see, like what he did with Bill Pulte, he put him in DNI, and basically the guy right now is firing, doing whatever he can, getting rid of certain agencies, people, and stuff like that. Same thing.
Trying to.
Yes, it's what we know of. But and what I'm saying to you is they do certain things that it's like, okay, perfect example. Let's take the White House East Wing. The courts have told them to stop building. He's still continuing building. He can't stop building because it's now a security threat. He's not going to listen. He's going to. I think he just got another $1 billion for it, and he's going to doesn't matter continuability. What's to stop him from some of these? And again, not to say I understand what's the enforcement on it? Who's going to
Okay.
enforce it and how? Because that's where my concern comes.
Well, so first of all, the thing about the ballroom and the East Wing is that the court order to stop had an exception for security and safety. So, of course, he's using that. So he's not ignoring the court order. He is using that exception and just saying, well, these are, we need to keep doing this because of security and safety. The reality is, as much as people don't believe it, and as much as maybe I even hate to say it on one side, but on the other, I'm glad to be able to say it, is that for the most part, they are following court orders. They appeal
Yes.
them a lot, and when a
Yes.
stay happens, what people don't understand is, you hear like, hey, the court stopped him from doing this, and then they appeal, and then the appeals court stays that injunction. So the people don't hear that, they don't know about that, so it looks like they're breaking and violating the court orders, but they're really it's a very tiny number of court orders that they actually directly violated. So what's to stop them is they're actually following court orders, again, for the most part. But again, that doesn't mean, and I know what you're hearing,
No, no,
and
and you're right, and I just want to say to you, you're 100, and I agree with you 100%. But what I'm worried about is that exactly that Bill Pulte part. What
right.
if they turn around and give him like, let me maybe ask you this question instead of say, is there a point where if Bill Pulte and they give him a national security threat? And they could say, well, in writing, your DNI officer says, Mr. President, we have the Chinese or whatever, there's a threat, and these are the states because of whatever, it's Michigan, Wisconsin, whatever. And is there a way he could federalize or force upon, yes, not, do it like because we always talk about him doing, martial law where the whole country, but what I'm talking about is him attacking certain states like Georgia, the Detroit, Michigan, others, by federalizing those states and saying because of a threat that we have going on. Is there a way he could do that?
Well, first of all, federalizing a state is something that they say to make people scared. That's not even a thing. And with respect specifically to what actually that would look like, for example, that I can't even really imagine what they would come up with that would hold water at all. But let's just say they did. I would remind people that that's what they tried to do last year in Oregon and in California with the National Guard. And the states that still have or did have National Guards that weren't challenged or didn't get ordered out, it was because they were states that welcomed and invited the National Guard to come in, those southern states. But in Oregon and in California and in Minnesota, the courts ordered that he could not do that. And guess what? The National Guard dispersed, and they are not there, and they weren't there. He cannot do it legally. So the real issue is him attempting to do a thing that he may or may not know is not legal, and that period of time where the courts are getting activated to throw it out. In the case of elections, the courts are extremely sensitive. Number one, no federal agent is allowed to be armed near polling places during election day. That is just like incredibly clearly illegal. And the court would slam that down so fast. But also generally, if they are trying to monkey with the elections, they're trying to intimidate at the polling places, again, the courts are very, very sensitive to when someone is trying to interfere with an election. And again, it's so important to understand that the federal government does not run elections. The states run elections. It's right in our Constitution. So he can try whatever the hell he wants, but it will be smacked down right away. But you know what he's doing right now that he can do that isn't being smacked down? He's fomenting fear. He's encouraging people to be afraid and worried about the elections and to stay home.
And
That's
that's one
exactly
thing we
right. It's
can't
all
do.
about the
That's
fear.
great. Yeah, very,
Yeah,
very
that's
well
very
said,
useful.
Andy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You know, we're out of
Yeah,
time, guys. I got to get ready for the 5-stack,
That's
and there's a
all
lot
right.
coming up in 30 minutes. So hopefully everyone joins me then with Dean. You guys have been great, as always. And tell everyone what they can find right now on Notes from the Front.
You can find, well, for my Notes from the Front members, which is that $5 a month membership, I have been going through day by day the transcripts of Maxwell's trial. And so that's been really interesting. You can also find the information about, this postal the order we just talked about, the post office, and several other things. But I very quickly want to say, B. Berg, courts can issue injunctions the same day, and they will.
And tomorrow, Todd Blanche has to arrive, apparently, in the Katie Fan case with 37 pages that we haven't seen before from the Epstein files. What's your prediction? Is he going to do it?
Well, no, I think he's probably going to file another motion to extend it. But I also want to point out that a couple of the victims have filed motions to stop it from happening with respect to the documents where their names are the ones that would be unredacted. So it's not just Blanche.
That is why Ann P. Mitchell is who Ann P. Mitchell is, attorney and advocate and a law professor and a person we trust very much on the things related to the law. Lev Parnas, what's happening on Lev Remembers?
Oh, well, obviously, the big story we're working on right now, I'm working on the story about what Trump really was doing in the catering cart and what really happened in Turkey and between that trip to the UK, where he then joined up, which is a huge story that I'm working on, and others so stay tuned, like we always break here. But definitely the number one thing that tomorrow I'm going to be looking at, and as we talk about here in the narrative and with Ann and Zev all the time, it's not just about the pedophilia and the sexual stuff that, Blanche is. They're more worried about the Russia connection. They're more worried about the global power connection. And that's why they are not seeing it. And I think we'll do another maybe show either tomorrow or the day after, talking a little bit more about Baku and Azerbaijan.
Yeah,
and
there's so much that we haven't got to. Yeah.
I think we have a lot more to cover that, but definitely thank you everybody for coming. You can always find me at Lev Remembers on Substack here. That's our show. And please, Zev Shalev, the narrative, one of a kind. So make sure you subscribe to him and cross-pollinate. You could press that button and subscribe to all three of us. Subscriptions are for free.
This button's
free.
Just press that button, cross-pollinate, subscription. And for those of you that can, become paid subscribers, because independent journalism, for what you got, three amazing guests here. Zev Shalev, the incredible work he does, the story breaking he does, and Ann Mitchell, a lawyer that gives you, just look at the breakdown we just talking about constitutional rights and other thing. And me, I'm an insider. I'm a guy that's going to bring you the inside report. So it's the best money you guys will spend if you cheaper than a cup of coffee.
Don't downplay yourself, Lev. You are amazing.
That is so true. I will say, for both of you, and it's your whistleblower status that has given us this incredible insight into what MAGA does and how you're applying it now to the fight for democracy versus the fight against democracy is remarkable. So salute to you and to Ann. And for those of you who've been wondering what this picture is, this is the ending now. I guess it's going to move the whole way through, but this is almost the completion of the eclipse that many people are watching. I guess from Spain is where a lot of people are getting the best views. And it means that the moon is coming between the sun and the earth, if I'm not mistaken. Someone correct me if I am. And because the moon is 400 times further away, the sun is 400 times further away than the moon, here it looks like we can obscure the entire thing if you're standing in just the right cone, which is why it looks like a total eclipse. And it reminds me of the Bonnie Tyler song, Bonnie Tyler
I just thought about total eclipse of the moon.
And she just passed away. And now we're going to have a change of kings happening because of the symbolism of this thing. What a day, everybody. We'll see you again at 3 o'clock on the 5-stack. Thanks, guys.
Take care, guys.
Thank you.